Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Commander with the Weekly Comic Roundup. We've already covered this week's X-Men and Avengers books, at least the ones that are not related to King in Black. So now it's time to delve into this week's King in Black tie-ins, starting off with Venom number 33. Where we left off, Eddie Brock was dead, and he had found himself in Null's hive mind, alongside his old ally Rex Strickland, and as a surprise, in a bit of a surprise to Eddie, Flash Thompson as well. In the world of the living, basically we see the speech that Peter gave to Dylan Brock to pump him up in King Black number 3 before they went out into before the heroes basically went out back out to face Null with Dylan at their back. Inside the hive mind, Eddie and Flash are talking, and apparently Flash is aware of some of the thing, the fact that after Flash's death, Eddie went to his grave and said that he was the better Venom, and but and they joke a bit, but as they talk, Eddie starts feeling these something hurting him, and he realizes it's not him that's being hurt, it's Null being hurt. Which means Dylan's out there. And yeah, we cut back to Dylan's brief fight with the nullified Captain America before going back into the hive mind where they're planning. Basically, they're planning. Because Null's hurt, he's a lot of those being held prisoner by him are being freed, and his control over them is also waning. They then find the central nervous system that connects all the symbiotes in the universe, or as Eddie puts it, the God Hive. And apparently there are some symbiotes that have been partitioned off. Those symbiotes are apparently free of Null's influence, which is why they're partitioned off. So the plan then becomes that Flash, it's basically just Flash, the Codex of Flash Thompson, will go out and bond with one of the partitioned off symbiotes and cause a distraction. And so he rushes in, guns blazing, tosses a grenade at some of them, and yeah, the plan actually does seem to work. He frees the partitioned off symbiotes, they take him, and he takes over one of the dragons, but Null feels this. And so now it's Rex's turn. However, Rex, as Eddie and Rex are discussing this, Rex grabs Eddie from behind, and well, it turns out that Rex has been replaced inside the God Hive by Null, who holds Eddie over a cliff, much like he held him over the edge of the Empire State Building in King in Black number 1. And that is where the issue ends. Bring us to our next book title, Gwenom vs. Carnage, number 2. Where we left off, after having been kidnapped by Earth 616's Jackal, who has since moved, so to speak, to Earth 65, the Mary Jane Watson of Earth 65 was exposed to some of the spiders that make up the synthetic symbiote spiders that make up Ghost Spider's costume around the time, and Somehow this interacted with Gwen opening a dimensional portal via her necklace at technically a later point in time and basically pulling MJ through as she's being corrupted by the symbiote. And Null has taken notice and, in fact, taken control of MJ and rechristened her Carnage while, going after Ghost Spider. So, MJ and Ghost Spider duke it out, and she steals a guitar from a music store and promptly wraps it up in her costume, turning it into a giant battle axe. But their fight continues, and then MJ gets a hold of Ghost Spider and basically drags her into the hive mind, where she meets Null. Who tries to get her to join him, and also shows her the anger that MJ harbors. You see things like MJ working on a song while Gwen just kind of drums away absent-mindedly, not really paying attention to anything MJ's saying. One of their early on at one of their gigs, and MJ's setting up, but Gwen's late, and then she bursts in fighting what looks like the Lizard. But yeah, she gets a few hits against Null, and but yeah, Gwen is determined to free MJ. MJ keeps on calling Gwen a coward, and basically, and then also assumes, well, that's why you're angry. It's like because you're not special anymore. And then MJ points out, or Gwen points out to MJ that her costume, it's a symbiote, basically a symbiote, but it's synthetic, and it's going to eat her. It's basically going to burn MJ out. The only reason Gwen's able to survive it is because of her powers. And so, MJ decides that she doesn't have much time. So, and you know what? Gwen's not worth the effort. But she leaves, stating she has places to be, houses to rock, and people to kill. And so, Gwen gives chase, which is where the issue ends. Which brings us to Return of the Valkyries number 2. Where we left off, Jane Foster was working on escorting the recently killed, again, Sentry to the afterlife when they discovered something amiss. A headless celestial that was crawling with dead soul, what seemed to be kind of dead souls, and it's actually, the whole thing is actually explained within the issue. We'll get to that. So the issue begins in New York, focusing on Danny Moonstar as she's trying to stave off the symbiote invasion. We get some background on Danny for those unaware. Like her mutant power allows her; she can feel the fears of others, and she can also, with lesser beings, she is close to being a telepath to them. But she's utilizing her psychic bow, which is not really doing too much, so she switches to a spear. but it doesn't seem to do much. And then Null pops in. But before we find out what Null has to say to Danny, in Valhalla, turns out that the Valkyrie that Jane Foster ran into has been thought gone for a long time, and so she's watching the others play, basically, while Jane and Brunhild talk. And Brunhild explains what's happened with the Celestial. That Celestial is the first death. Null murdered the Celestial for daring to bring light into Null's precious void. Null was banished for what he did, took refuge in the decapitated head of the Celestial, and he used its cosmic energies to forge the Necrosword. The head would become known by its own name, however. Nowhere. The body, however, was forgotten. The infant, fragmented soul of the Celestial was trapped drifting through space and time, and it did what Celestials do, created a world within itself, a world of the dead. But it stays in the in-between, never far from the Necrosword. It feeds energy to the Necrosword, and in return it feasts on the dead souls left in the wake of the symbiote god. Brunhild tells the new arrival that she needs to get her axe back, and also tells her where said axe is. Back on Earth, Danny and Null have a chat. Danny's clearly trying to distract Null, but yeah, he sees through it. But eventually Null tires of dealing with her. In Asgard, Jane asks Sif where she might find Hildegard. Hildegard's already on Midgard. In Vanaheim, the other Valkyrie arrives, but that's where her axe is. Local king, however, he's been told of visions of a woman coming for his axe. As they make their way towards the castle, the Valkyrie and Jane's horse talk, and actually, I think that's Aragorn. Come to think of it, but Valkyrie is told the tale of the three trolls from The Hobbit. Basically, they were going to eat the they were arguing over how to fix the dwarves in The Hobbit and Bilbo, and then the sun rose and turned them into stone. However, now they face some actual trolls show up, and Valkyrie makes some rock puns while killing the rock trolls. Danny makes one more attempt at harming one of the symbiote dragons, but it doesn't really do much good. The other Valkyrie finds the scoundrel king, explaining that Yarnborn is her axe, and that the dwarves of Nidavellir forged it for her, and she will have it back. So, His Highness tells her to come and claim it. On Midgard, Jane and Brightwind arrive at Danny's feet while Hildebrand goes after the symbiote dragon. And the issue ends with them basically saying, let's take this bad boy down. Which brings us to our next book, King in Black, Black Knight. So the Black Knight is a former Avenger. His uncle was a founding member of the Masters of Evil. But the whole thing with the Black Knight is that he has the ebony he is the bearer of the ebony blade, a sword that tends to drive its wielder mad with bloodlust, and so he's been trying. He's constantly trying to keep it in check. But yeah. So the issue begins with him flying around, fighting one of Null's dragons with the ebony blade. We flash back to earlier that day when his ancestor, Sir Percy of Scandia, the first Black Knight, they said, "Hey, knightly duties are here, so you know." But during the battle with with one of Null's dragons, Dane is reminded of an adventure he undertook a few years previously with Spider-Man, Kang the Conqueror, Rocket, and Monica Rambeau. Basically, it was symbiote Spider-Man, King in Black. But as he stabs the dragon, Null realizes, oh, hey, the ebony blade, and kind of trying to suss out the location of the blade, and by getting into Black Knight's head, and then the symbiote itself tries to take the sword, and somehow Dane ends up in China. He's rescued by Arrow. But now he's without his blade. When Swordmaster shows up and kills one of the dragons, and then Dane's trying to get his sword back, and kind of does the whole basically tries to do the whole Mjolnir thing, reaching his hand out like, yeah, if I just do this, it'll tell it who's boss, it'll come to me. Instead, Swordmaster's sword goes to him. But Arrow and Black Knight deal with some of the symbiotes, and he does begin, and Dane does, for a brief moment, give into a bit of the bloodlust and destroys a car and a dragon and a part of a building, and then the symbiote goo goes after Swordmaster's sword. It turns out that both swords are star-forged. Somehow Khonshu's even involved in the forging of Swordmaster's blade. And then Null tells Dane a secret about the ebony blade. It wasn't the pure of heart that Merlin was looking for to wield the blade. Rather, the impure of heart, as the pure of heart caused the blade to, not, or to lose its magic. But some of the symbiotes form a combination, a nullified version of Chiyu. And the ebony blade is discovered and lands in front of Black Knight, while Swordmaster goes after the symbiote creation of Chiyu, who is being controlled by Null. But Arrow is trying to convince Swordmaster that it's not a bad idea to be Avengers adjacent. And she says that, Tony Stark would probably say it's, It's not about being perfect. It's about accepting your flaws, then doing the right thing anyway. And so, Dane picks up the ebony blade, goes after the null-controlled Chiyu construct, and gives in a little bit to the darkness of the ebony blade and destroys the construct. Meanwhile, Arrow and Swordmaster are heading to New York, and because Tony Stark sent out another message for everyone to go there. That's where Null is, and they have to beat Null directly. And she asks if Black Knight's coming, and well, the answer is verily. That is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our final Marvel book of the week, King in Black Marauders. So, in issue 1, a contingent of X-Men were among those defending New York from Null's invasion, including Cyclops, the Captain Commander, and Storm, member of the Quiet Council, as well as member of the Marauders. So, Bishop is recounting what's happened so far to the rest of the crew. Her Highness, Red Queen Kate Pride, has a great comment about how, upon learning that this is all relating to Venom, it's just like, Spider-Man really needs to get a grip on his guys, right? But apparently the plan is, once they make landfall, that Iceman and Pyro will basically be the big flashy entrance from up high, while Bishop and Kate go in low and sneaky. But there's a distress call, so they go to rescue the crew of another damaged vessel that's being attacked by dragons. Pyro and Iceman do what they can to get the dragons off the boat. Pyro actually was thinking maybe his next tattoo will be one of the dragons, but so Iceman gets the crew of the boat over. But as they're getting ready to leave, Bishop is, hang on, there's something I want to check out. After the captain of the ship says that he's just carrying olive oil, nothing can't be grown again. It'll be fine if it's, if it goes away, or if it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, they're cargo's people. They're traffickers. Boat is stabilized. Everyone is gotten off the boat onto the Marauder. And decisions are made about the crew, with Iceman telling Sage what's going on and asking where the most unpleasant gate leads. And Iceman drops off the crew of the boat in Africa's Namib Desert. Directs them to the nearest city. It's a day's walk that way. And he leaves them he makes some blocks of ice. When they ask him, leaves them some water. Tells them to take as much as they can carry. Kate gets in touch with Emma, who then passes along the information about the refugees to Magneto. And so they're taken to Island M. We also learn that Bishop has a backup mission. A council member and the Captain Commander are both in the thrall of an alien space god. Bishop's mission is to free Cyclops and Storm one way or the other. But yeah, they drop off the refugees on Island M. Callisto insists that, does everyone grab a plant, go ahead and plant it, and yeah. Later on, Magneto shows up and speaks to the leader of the traffic people, Nyoka. And they talk, and he explains this used to be his home once upon a time, but now he realizes what it truly is—a sanctuary. And he says that there will be many stories written of Krakoa's might. However, Nakia is asked by Magneto to tell one of Krakoa's mercy. And that is where the issue ends. That's it for this week's King in Black tie-ins, and in fact, this week's Marvel books. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.